Once again, we come before thee to thank you for joining us in these wonderful discussions, taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here at Kenya News Alert, together with Channel 7 News East Africa, whereby we discuss matters dealing with politics. And today we are going to discuss, more importantly, on why we believe or Raila Amolo Odinga lost the 2022 elections and the failures that Azimio have undergone since elections and before elections up to today by maybe not putting the president on track. Today on our studio, we have two guests, and the third one is going to join us later as we be moving on. First, I want to introduce them so we get to know them who they are before we dive into our discussions. We have Arasa Makori. Arasa Makori, if you can hear us. You can come and introduce yourself just before we jump into our discussion.
Yes, hello. My name is Arasa Makweri, and I'm happy to be here today.
Who is Arasa Makori?
Arasa Makweri is a Kenyan, like I believe most of those who are watching this.
Even Kenyans are watching, non-Kenyans are watching.
But I believe a good majority is made up of Kenyans.
What's your profession and maybe what's your line of a career?
Yeah, I'm a political scientist and a policy analyst.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to let them understand, that
Okay.
you'll be speaking what you understand from the political science, both theory and practicals. And next to with him is Alfred Msioka. Alfred.
Morning, Kenyans. My name is Alfred Musioka, and it's my pleasure enjoy I normally call him my senior counsel, Arasa Makori, who happened to be my postmate at KC University. So I'm a political scientist and also a constitutional expert, matters to do with the constitution of Kenya.
Oh, that's amazing. So those are our guests today, as they've just introduced themselves. One, Arasa Makori is a political analyst. He did political science in Kisi University, and he has a good mastery in all that's dealing with politics, history of politics, and even the future of politics. And we also have his friend, Alfred Musioka, who also happened to be a political analyst, who did political science, and he has a good mastery of constitutional, all that deals with the constitution creation, a challenging of the supremacy of the constitution, and even all that pertains a constitution. Now, I'm starting with you, Alfred Msioka, maybe before we jump into our discussion today. We've seen the former Attorney General Githu Muigai coming on the bipartisan talks and giving his views on how the constitution should be amended, and maybe cutting off some constituencies, bringing off some political seats, and maybe doing away with them. Now that you understand more about the constitution, what are your views regarding these bipartisan talks facing or pointing to the constitutional amendment?
First of all, Githu Muigai is a distinguished lingual scholar in this country. And I happened to listen to some of the recommendations that he made at the team that was at Bomas. And one of them was to have to do away with maybe to reduce the number of counties. You know, normally we have 47 counties, maybe to have maybe region tiers. But there is one recommendation that he made, whereby you remember in the previous Building Bridges initiative, there was a recommendation that each county to have a senator, and a senator who is a woman and a man. But in this scenario, Gideon Mwenga is saying that we need to reduce the number of constituencies, but Angel contradicted himself by saying that by reducing the number of constituencies, we also need to have to come up with a scenario whereby each constituency we have a man and a woman representing their specific constituencies. But again, the members that the members of the bipartisan talks. I remember it was Opio Wandai who questioned the legality or how this is going to happen. Remember now you are saying that we reduce the number of constituencies, but again come up with a scenario where we have a woman and a man representing those constituencies. Maybe to be able to address the issue of genderhood. But for example, for me, my recommendation would be, I come from Kitui County, and Kitui County is regarded as one of the largest counties in this country in terms of land mass. I come from the far actually I come from Sekuru, where I come from Niponda, Tarakaniti County. So one of we feel that we are underrepresented, and we actually need to have our own county. That is a Mwingi County, so that we can be able to run our affairs. Because from Sekuru to where I come from, Sekuru to Kitui, it's around 200 kilometers. So that will be my view.
So those are analyst Msioka Alfred's remarks on constitutional amendments and sentiments that were given by Professor Githu Muigai regarding to coming up and remove some constituencies, remove some political seats, and even reduce the number of leaders in our country so as to afford to be able to deliver the promises to Kenyans, maybe in terms of development. Now, without wasting much time, today our topic is why Raila Amolo Odinga lost. What made him maybe to lose elections? After elections, he went to appeal to the Supreme Court. After appealing to the Supreme Court, the elections were upheld. He goes again to appeal with the Kenyans in the ground, and then through demonstrations, and then the president calls for him for talks. We've seen the bipartisan talks. What has Azimio family done up to the moment, and what lies the future for Azimio and Raila Amolo Odinga in large? Now, Arasa Makori.
Yes.
Why do you believe, or what makes you believe that Raila Amolo Odinga lost the 2022 general elections?
Yeah, the most basic of all the reasons is that Raila lost because Ruto won. That's how simple you can view it. But looking at it from a technical point of view, the campaign team of the Azimio side had very many flaws that led to their loss. Number one, we know Raila Odinga as a charismatic leader, a guy who has a religious following, and people believed that in a free and fair election, nobody could beat Raila Odinga, judging from the other elections, 2017A and 2007. Of course, some have an issue with 2013. So the free and fair factor in the elections was that the so-called system and deep state was on Raila's side in 2022, because the sitting head of state was supporting Raila Odinga. So everybody believed that Raila was going to win in one way or the other. And this served as a challenge to his team instead of being a benefit, because we saw how it affected the voter turnout in his Luo backyard. And of course, a few months or weeks, months to the election day, that was on August 9th, we saw Raila himself making some mistakes in his team. And the first mistake he did was to pick Martha Karua to be his running mate, because if I remember well, in 2012, there's a certain political scientist who came up with a theory to say that the 50% plus one vote, that is a cut-off kind of point to pass the presidential test, means that you need to have at least two big tribes behind you and one small party. That is the one vote for you to enter state house. So in his reasoning, that political scientist meant that the first big party should be from the presidential aspirant side, and then the other big party, the other big tribe should be from the running mate side. But you see what Honorable Martha Karua did to the team. She brought almost nothing to the team. And then Raila had the options of other people like Alonzo Musyoka, but he had to drop them. However, in his reasoning, Raila decided to bring in a new card. Instead of doing this the normal way of combining large tribes, he wanted to bring in the gender card, but it served as a detriment to his aspiration of becoming president.
Now, before you continue, maybe I'll give you time to continue. So this Arasa Makori bringing us their key points that may be made. He believes that made Raila Amolo Odinga to lose the 2022 general elections are: one, he made a mistake in choosing the running mate. Do you believe so? You will tell us in the comment sections. Why do you believe that Raila Amolo Odinga either made a mistake for choosing Martha Karua as the running mate? And two, why do you think maybe he did the right thing to bring Martha Karua to his running point? Now, Arasa is telling us that the theory of politics in 50 plus 1%, you need to have two large communities in a country and one minor party, so that for you to attain the 50 plus 1 vote, 50% plus 1 vote. Now, Raila Odinga comes from the Luo Nyanza that delivered for him in the 2022 presidential election. But the running mate, Martha Karua, brought almost nothing from Mount Kenya region. So, whereby Raila Odinga had other options for bringing large communities, like the Western community and the Kambal community, something he did not want to bring. Perhaps he wanted to bring the gender way, maybe by bringing Martha Karua as the female. Maybe the Kenyans would look it from a perspective that this is a one of our own. So by having electing as Azimio, that's Raila and Martha Karua, we went to achieve the gender rule, something that did not give them a victory. Now, if we compare from the other side of Kenya Kwanza, where the president from Rift Valley is bringing one large community, there's mostly the North Rift, together with Rigathi Gachagua delivering for Mount Kenya region. So this made them get the 50%, and using the other one by using other minor parties, like we saw they bringing the Western, Mudavadi, Wetangula, and others, and from other parts of the country. Maybe it could be the reason that gave them a victory. Now we're going back to Arasa Makori so that he gives us a more and more understanding why Raila Amolo Odinga lost. Yes, Arasa, now you can continue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emmanuel. For the power brokers who were probably funding and wanted Raila Odinga to be president, for them, Raila was to serve one purpose, and that was to prevent Ruto from becoming president. And yeah, to them, Raila had everything that it should take for one to become president, but William Ruto capitalized much on Raila's as the Azimio team's shortcomings and challenges. Coming on to the election, because that the election was lost during the voting period. Number one, the Azimio team had poor poll watching mechanism. We were told that in some quarters the agents were shortchanged. Others were told not to go to the polling stations and such other theories that maybe we cannot even afford to believe. Number two, the team had a poor communication strategy. We could not tell who is who in Azimio. You know, at some point you could see anybody making issuing a communique like Junet Mohammed. At some point you have Sabina Chege. At some point you have there's this chief agent called Kanchori and such people. So there was no hierarchy that could determine what strategy they are using to communicate to their people, because that is very important in an election process. Number three, the William Ruto team had a very strong system to disseminate propaganda to the public, because sometimes you don't need to tell people facts for you to enter State House. This team had a very strong system to disseminate the propaganda. And then the mistake the Raila Odinga team did was not to come up with a strategy to counter this propaganda, because we did not see at any point somebody of the equals of Dennis Itumbi in Azimio. And so that's how, in simple terms, you can say Raila lost, in my opinion, though.
Yeah, so those are the opinions of analyst Rasa Makori. He has pointed out that Azimio team and ODM in particular never had a good communication strategy, something that maybe took or made Azimio to lose the 2022 elections. He's pointing out that Azimio team had no plan or efforts to counter the propaganda that were being spread by the Kenya Kwanza team. So maybe something that made the propaganda to remain to be true to Kenyans, maybe that's why they voted in the Kenya Kwanza. You're talking about the agents, the 2022, the watch team for Azimio. The agents, some never showed up for the activity during the election day. Some were told not to attend the 2022 watch team by going to the polling stations, even including the chief agents. And now, so those are some of the reasons that he's giving out to us why Azimio lost, and to be more specific, the presidential seat for Raila Amolo Odinga. Now, we want to have another analyst, that's Alfred Musyoka, to come and give us his opinions and reasons to us why he believes what made Raila Amolo Odinga and Azimio at large to lose the 2022 general elections. Yeah, welcome Alfred from the other side, and join us in giving us your reasons to us why you believe Raila Amolo Odinga lost the 2022 elections.
Yes, there are so many factors that can be attributed as to why Raila lost the 2022 election. You remember there was a coalition agreement between the party that was attributed to the current Speaker of the Senate, that is Emerson King, Pamoja Alliance. And then you remember at one point Mutua was at Azimio la Umoja and left towards the end when the agreement was towards when there was the lapse of signing of a coalition agreement. So, and if you remember, Raila had an handshake with the former president Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and trying to neglect some of his allies. You remember, it was Minguna who saw in Raila as the people's president after Uhuru. But instead of maybe Raila being charged for what many people believe it was a treason, it was Minguna was actually meant to leave this country without being taken to a court of law. So first of all, I believe Raila is a seasoned politician in this country, but it's someone who is known for betraying some of his allies. You remember there was a disintegration of the NASA coalition, the likes of Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula. And you must also understand that actually William Ruto is one of the most strategic politicians that we have at this country. So Ruto knew that a coalition involving Raila, Kalonzo, Mudavadi, and Wetangula was illegal. So Ruto went and ensured that he captured Wetangula and Mudavadi. And you remember Wetangula delivered quite a high number of votes in his Bungoma backyard. Votes that if it were they were to go to the center of Raila, maybe they could have made him president, or none of the two candidates, that is William Ruto and Raila, could have achieved the 50+1 constitutional threshold. Then I agree with my colleague Arasa that there was a lot of mismanagement of the campaigns, where we came to understand after the election was over, Azimio did not have agents in most parts of the country. That is preferably Mount Kenya. Other polling stations didn't have the agents to protect their votes. So I believe this is something that Kenya Kwanza capitalized on, lacking agents to protect the votes that were supposed to be for the Azimio coalition. And the other thing that I remember, I can also say that made Raila lose this election. You see, you remember, it's like the Western countries were pro-Ruto, because I remember at a particular time the United States Embassy issuing an advisory for people not to travel to Kisumu for reasons that they believe there was a likelihood of having violence in Kisumu. That was before the election was before Chembukati announced the election results. Then after that, when the petition was filed at Supreme Court, the same I remember.
Yeah, so that's analyst Alfred Musyoka, who has been giving us his opinions to why he believed that the Raila and Azimio coalition lost the 2022 elections, citing on key points such as the mismanagement of the campaign, and more importantly, citing the failures for Azimio and Raila Odinga from 2017, when they lost the general election for the second term to Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto as the deputy president. Here, when Raila Amolo Odinga was sworn in as the people's president by Miguna. Since then, when the handshake was being called with his handshake brother Uhuru Kenyatta, he did not have time to prepare himself. Maybe for the 2022 elections, he believed maybe he had won, that now he had the support of the president then, that's President Uhuru Kenyatta. Two, he had the state support, and 3, he had the support from Mount Kenya, something that he has not been enjoying for long. So this made him perhaps not to enjoy the 2022 presidential elections. He is giving examples from the Kenya Kwanza, how they took themselves serious, citing that William Ruto is a very ambitious politician who does not leave any stone unturned to see that his dreams are coming true. One, he was very vibrant in the 2022 general elections, doing much about campaigning, moving all the parts of the country, being strategic on whom to choose as the deputy president, and even bringing close and close to the elections. Now we are on with this discussion whereby Alfred Musyoka, the other analyst from the other side, is citing these reasons towards why the Azimio lost. He has also talked about the watching team of Azimio that did not employ their agents well in all parts of the country during the voting day and maybe during the campaign period, to be very keen and very, very concerned about the election. Now, we are going on with Alfred. You can continue from where you had stopped, giving out your reasons.
So before the connection was lost, but and the campaign was mismanaged because in some parts of the country, that is Mount Kenya, there were no agents to protect the votes of Raila Amolo Odinga. And that's why I was saying sometimes I find it hard to admit that Martha Karua is indeed a senior in Azimio coalition compared to Kalonzo Musyoka. I don't think the party that is affiliated to Martha Karua has even an MCA, does not even have an MCA in the entire country. And I saw somewhere in the social media, this does not mean that I'm undermining women in this country. I saw a meme somewhere in social media, somebody saying that Martha Karua is a proof that a woman sometimes can bring nothing to the table. So, indeed, were it not for Honorable you see, Kalonzo Musyoka came to Azimio in the final part of the campaign and delivered quite a huge number of votes from Esu Kambani backyard compared to what the gentlemen from Mount Kenya, the likes of Kanini Kenga, Sambina Chenge, and others. And I believe Raila, when Muru endorsed Raila as his preferred candidate, most of the people actually saw this as someone who was going to be the puppet of the previous administration, and somebody maybe who would not make his decisions independently, but the decisions would be influenced by the former president. And again, if you look at the Nyanza region where Raila Amolo Odinga comes from, there was actually low voter turnout compared to some parts of the President Ruto's backend of Rift Valley, Mount Kenya. Also in the coast region, there was a low voter turnout. And actually, and then before election was held, that was on the 9th of August, you remember, Chembukati made an announcement postponing the election, the gubernatorial election of Kakamega and Mombasa. So I believe this was actually one of the key pillars that was before the Supreme Court, whereby the Azimio coalition meant that this pronouncement was to deter maybe voters to go and elect their preferred candidate. You see, after presidential election, the other topmost election that comes after is the election of a governor, and maybe many people many people go there to elect their preferred governor and postponing. So there was somebody maybe who wanted to go and vote for Nasir of Mombasa and the other one from Kakamega, that is Mbaraza. But after the postponement, I believe this was in one way or another meant to low voter turnout in those two regions that were perceived to be as the new strongholds.
Now that's Alfred who is on giving his points towards why he believes that Raila Amolo Odinga and Azimio lost. He has been very keen on pointing out the mistake that Raila Amolo Odinga did was that of appointing Martha Karua to be the running mate, who her political party did not even produce one MCA in the country. So she did not deliver from Mount Kenya as we expected or as Azimio expected to be delivered, so maybe to give Azimio victory. Now, we want to see maybe the pre-elections developments that maybe made Raila Amolo Odinga to lose the elections. First, Alfred pointed out that after the 2017 elections, when Raila lost, he went out again for the demonstrations, something that made him to proclaim himself to be the people's president, being sworn in by Miguna Miguna, and we saw Miguna Miguna being deported out of the country to Canada, wherever he stayed until he was brought back just when William Ruto won the elections. Did the handshake maybe affect the Raila Amolo Odinga just before elections? Did the handshake deny him time to prepare himself for the 2022 elections? Did the handshake between Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta maybe made Raila Amolo Odinga to win? We saw the President Uhuru Kenyatta supporting Raila Amolo Odinga. He gave him the state machinery. They were walking all over the country campaigning with Uhuru Kenyatta. We saw them spreading the BBI, that's Building Bridges Initiative program, something we saw did not see the day, and many others. Now, Arasa Makori, what do you want, or what do you believe the pre-election developments, the political development just before the elections for 2022? Maybe to point out to the handshake between Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta and the BBI. Are they the pre-election events that maybe denied Raila Amolo Odinga at strategy and time to work on the 2022 elections?
Yeah, thank you, Manuel. When you try to build the profile of Raila Odinga as a politician, his fame is an accumulation of his defiance to the powers that be. Raila Odinga has built his political career for one simple reason, and that is opposing the regimes that are in power. He did it to Moi, he did it to Kibaki despite supporting him at some point from the onset, and then he did it to Uhuru Kenyatta and then later supported him. So his decision to enter into a pre-election pact with a sitting head of state and then using it as a tool to try and clinch the presidency to some extent was detrimental to his cause of succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta. And then there's this historical factor that no candidate who has been supported by the sitting head of state or an outgoing head of state has ever won. You saw what happened to Uhuru Kenyatta in 2002. So it's like history was repeating itself in 2022, just 20 years later. On top of that, maybe if you can allow me to add some 2 points to my colleague's narrative, which is quite technical. As I told you from the onset, Azimio lost because Kenya Kwanza won. That's how simple you can explain this. And again, a loss in an election doesn't mean that you gain a majority of the votes. I'm not saying Ruto did not gain a majority of the votes, but there are two things that determine whether you will go to State House or not. Number one is the chairperson of IBC, as the Bomas of Kenya says, candidate A, if it's Emmanuel against Kitonga Musyoka, Emmanuel has won the election. Then the biggest hurdle before you is to convince the Supreme Court, if the presidential petition has been launched, that yes, indeed, Emmanuel won and Kitonga lost. So it doesn't matter, or it doesn't matter how many votes you got. If the IBC chairperson says you won, and then the Supreme Court validates that victory, you just won, because there's no any appellate route to take. Besides the handshake pact that we believe had a detriment on Raila's popularity, of course, Raila Odinga lost his 2017 constituency. That is the people who have been rallying behind him, because over time he has been building up his base. That is from Nyanza, Western Coast to Kambani, and the northeastern part. But in 2022, he lost a good part of that constituency. You saw, as my friend told you, what happened to him when the former NASA companies was left. That is Musalia and Wetangula. Despite the fact that Musalia did not cause much to the Azimio numbers, Wetangula did, because Bungoma now became yellow more than it was blue. Lastly, Azimio had a toothless technical team that had no political touch and know-how. You see, you cannot trust someone like Fred Matiang'i in your technical team, because Fred Matiang'i has never been a politician. All his life, Matiang'i has been a bureaucrat. I'm not saying Matiang'i is the cause for Raila's loss, but to some extent he contributed, and there are so many people in that team who were like Fred Matiang'i, who worked with him, because we've been told that at some point a certain CS came to the room and was asking the technical team, how far are we? And then the technical team could raise their issues, and then the guy could say, no problem, Shona suit, we're going to State House. And then what happened was a chaos in Bomas, a strong choir, and then Ruto is the president.
Now, there's Arasa Makori pointing out to Azimio's failures that they had toothless politicians who had never had the touchline with the campaign tool, pointing out to the super minister then, super CS, Fred Matiang'i. Maybe in one way he made some statements or some actions that maybe led Azimio to lose the 2022 elections. Now, Alfred Musyoka, from the other side, do you believe that Uhuru Kenyatta was fixing Raila Amolo Odinga in his game so as to lose the 2022 elections?
You see, there is a saying that says that when you are eating the devil, then you should use a long spoon. And I actually listened to the previous interview you had with my senior Rasa, that Raila Odinga is a man who is usually on a campaign mood. You remember after Raila did that shake with the president, it was when the Building Bridges initiative was introduced. So I believe for Ruto, Uhuru, making handshake with Raila, you know, Uhuru was in his final term of his presidency, and the first term of the Jubilee administration faced so many challenges from the opposition. You remember there were so many demonstrations, mainly the opposition were demonstrating to have the circus and team leave the anniversary towers. So for me, I believe Uhuru bringing Raila closer to him in his final term was a strategy for him so that he could actually end his term peacefully and give the president, that was Uhuru Kenyatta, enough time maybe to deliver deliver his promises and not have so many not to have deal with the challenges that have been the opposition and causing in the first term. But you remember, Raila was actually so popular when the building bridges came in. But after there were so many petitions that were filed at the High Court of Kenya. The High Court said that the PPI was unconstitutional. Then it went to Court of Appeal up to Supreme Court. From there, you remember so many politicians from Mount Kenya were on the side of Raila Odinga. That is the likes of Anu Inguru, Katie Warunguru, so many others. And when the Building Bridges initiative went to the 47 county assemblies, I remember majority of them actually passed for the passage of the Building Bridges initiative. But after the court made a decision that the BBI was unconstitutional, and Raila saw some of those who were his close allies, like the Anu Inguru and Kitu Warunguru, go to the other side of William Ruto. That I believe Raila could have seen this one as a very big grand alert to him. And this was one of the clearest indication that William Ruto was going to win this election, because he managed. You remember at one time saying that the Renge will have to be stopped, and actually stopped the Renge got stopped. And I believe one of the reasons why the courts made a decision that other than the fact that the courts made a decision, a ruling that the president does not have any constitutional right to amend the constitution. That is right that is reserved for the ordinary person. But the moment there was a clause in the Building Bridges initiative of judiciary ombudsman. I believe judiciary did not want to have someone supervise them. You see, that position was like what we have in the current constitution, where we have the Senate. The role of the Senate is to oversight their counties and ensure that the counties live. So I believe the judiciary never wanted to have someone supervise them. And so after the BBI collapsed, that's when I believed many people, especially in this country, if you want to win the election, you must use the propaganda. There are those that believe that the introduction of the office of the prime minister was a way to sneak the former president to political seat again after the BBI had been passed. And many people, Ruto came up with the narrative of Ursula and dynasty, where he believed that Uhuru endorsing Raila was actually a ploy to ensure that the dynasty continue to rule this country, which many people believed in, especially those from Mount Kenya. And as I said earlier, Uhuru endorsing Raila, many people actually saw this as someone who was going to be a puppet of the government, and decided not to vote for Raila. Raila who was Raila after the indeed handshake with Uhuru. You remember the first term, Raila used to be a freedom fighter, where he used to address the issues of the ordinary people, the high cost of living, like he's doing now. Actually used to perform his opposition role. But after Raila went and did that handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, we never saw the Raila that was charismatic, and many people ought to have believed that it could maybe have addressed some of the challenges that came up after 2017 election, whereby many people got killed as a result of demonstration. And many people also thought that he was going to forfeit the compensation of those that lost their lives after demonstrations were done in 2017. So
Yeah,
I
so
believe
that's Alfred Sioka trying to give us his explanations. Rasa had earlier pointed out that in most cases, that when you have a presidential candidate being endorsed and being supported by the sitting president, it's not easy for that candidate to win. Just as we saw in 2002 when Daniel Moi was supporting Uhuru Kenyatta, then he did not win until his dream was visualized in 2013. We saw history repeating itself in the 2022 elections when the sitting president now, Uhuru Kenyatta, was supporting Raila Odinga. Something that did not come to be materialized. And we saw Raila Odinga losing to Kenya Kwanza. And as Tarasa was saying that Raila lost the election because the Kenya Kwanza won. He pointed out that after losing the election, to being the IEBC commissioner, when he declares one to be the president, if the opposition challenges that in the Supreme, what needs to be done is to prove or convince the Supreme Court why Kenya Kwanza won, as we saw. And then Raila Odinga had another option for coming to appeal to Kenyans, Kenyans through demonstrations. Now, I want to ask my two analysts. I will start with Darasa Makori. Do you think this appealing method of Raila Amolo Odinga, the appealing method Raila Odinga had first, he had to appeal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was convinced that Kenya Kwanza won, something that made Raila Odinga again to come up with another strategy of appealing to Kenyans, telling them, Kenyans, life is unbearable. The cost of living is high. The price of unga imepanda. And we saw that the Kenyan-wide demonstrations, they started by 1 day, moving to 2 days, 3 days, even now, to a point it was even threatening to have demonstration the whole week. Now, is it the best appealing method that maybe Raila Odinga had now that we've come from the elections? He has lost. Is it the best way that he needed to appeal to Kenyans towards why he lost the elections?
One of the only known, or just the only known appellate mechanism that you can use to contest a loss in an election or any contentious issue that you have is to go to the Supreme Court. That is legally known, constitutionally recognized. Once the Supreme Court turns down your concerns, then you have to wait for 5 years so that you can come back through the ballot and then capitalize on what you did not during the other season. And so by coming to the people, Raila Odinga just wanted to play his usual game that has made him popular over time. There's something, there's some political literature written by a certain political scientist called Robert Greene. And Robert Greene, in his 48 Laws of Power, in law number 6, he says, court attention at all costs. That is how you will remain relevant. What Raila Odinga did to come back with the Maandamano is to put attention, because he knew very well that now William Ruto has defeated him. But how do you explain that to the people? That your student at some point, whom you mentored, is now president and he has won, and you have lost when you're supposed to win as the master, and then your student comes second. For William Ruto, what is left of him to do to Raila Odinga is to apply law number 15, as Raila is busy doing law number 6. Law number 15 says, crush your enemy totally. So William Ruto has the influence of power, and Raila Odinga believes he has the people. So what happens when powerless people gather together to oppose the government? And then this guy who has power also has his support. And from the numbers, from the IBC numbers of 2022, William Ruto won by a margin of, I think it's 200,000. It's not a big margin. So it means, despite the fact Raila says he has people, also William Ruto has people. But again, the issues being raised by Raila Odinga are not trivial issues that one can ignore. But as I said in this platform before, Raila Odinga's issues are to do with electoral loss, not the cost of living. This cost of living issue is just to marinate what Raila Odinga is bringing to the table. Because if you watched the proceedings at Bomas during the National Dialogue Committee presentations, you can tell from, if you can do a simple calculation, the cost of living had less than 20% of the time, but the rest was based on electoral issues, injustices, number of constituencies and such. So that is my opinion, though. I don't know how my colleague will, will look at it.
So Arasa is telling us that the application of the rule laws of power, the two, one, Raila Odinga brought up William Ruto into politics, showed him some strategies. Now William Ruto, a student of Raila Odinga, is defeating him in the 2022 elections. And Raila Odinga's way to explain to Kenyans that he did not lose the election is using other excuses as to what Arasa is saying, of using the demonstrations, which are a way to appeal to the president, on a way maybe to have out a communication with him. Maybe we saw that they are the ones actually brought the back to bipartisan talks. Now let's hear Alfred Sioka giving out his opinions toward this point.
After losing Raila, the NDC declared that William Ruto won the election. The only avenue that Raila Odinga had was to contest this, to challenge this election at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court had an opportunity of listening to both sides of the faction, that is Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. And made a ruling that, remember the Chief Justice Martha Koome said that the submission from the Azimio side were out here, lost cause, and so many other kind of ones. So that was the only avenue that Raila Odinga had to challenge the outcome of the election. And if you read the Article 163 of the Constitution that talks about the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, the primary role of the Supreme Court is to listen to any matters relating to the presidential election, and it says that the decision of the Supreme Court is final. So the moment the Supreme Court declared that William Ruto was validly elected as as the president of the Republic of Kenya, that one was final. And I'm a fan of football, and sometimes as a coach you have to change the tactics that you are using based on the opponent that you are facing. See, Raila Odinga has been has mounted this sort of demonstrations going back to the people. After every election, he comes to the people and tells the people that my election has been stolen. I mean, this is a man that has contested for the seat of for the presidential election for five terms. All of us make mistakes, but for me, I believe that we ought to learn from our mistakes. And in this scenario, Raila Odinga had the best opportunity. It is an opportunity that comes once in a lifetime, and he squandered the opportunity because you can recall the support of the previous government. That is the security, maybe mobilization of the resources, the cabinet secretary, most of them were supporting Raila Odinga. So it is after the demonstrations that were made that William Ruto appealed to the demands of the opposition leader. So I believe for me the bipartisan talks that are happening at Bomas of Kenya are part of what forms part of the functions of president pursuant to Article 132 of the Constitution. And one of them is to ensure that we have national unity in this country, which is also a part of the national values and principles of governance under Article 10 of the Constitution. But as my colleague Arasa has said, I listened to the submission of various groups from various parts of the country, and cost of living has really been discussed at Bomas of Kenya. Oh, the discussion that we are having there is maybe people submitting their views. It's all about interest from one region to another. I saw a man from Momambe who was saying that we need to have a certain region in Momambe that is cosmopolitan, where they need to have a constituency that will consist of Kanyantians. So for me, I believe Raila has continued to use the demonstration so that he can get an avenue. He can get an avenue with the previous government and have his own interest and rest. And that is what we have. That is what led to the talks that are happening currently at Bomas of Kenya. Those are my views.
So those are their views, saying that maybe the only way to appeal. Arasa, you have
I
something?
can add more.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can add to, sorry for interrupting. You said that after Raila lost, even in the petition, he went back to the people to present his bid to the people that now I won, but it has been stolen again from me. That is the usual tactic that he uses. But when I look at this 2022 post-election build-up, I'm trying to liken it up to the 2005 scenario. Once Raila realized that his popularity is dwindling, what he did was to force a scenario where we have a referendum. You remember the Wako draft of 2005, and
It was
then
banana
at some point,
against orange.
yeah, the banana and orange.
Uh-huh.
Then Raila took the no rule. That is how the ODM party was born. So what Raila Odinga is doing is trying to force a referendum through the talks, because what will come out of the talks anyway, because what people are proposing at the National Dialogue Committee are technical demands that needs that need a referendum. And so Raila Odinga is trying to force William Ruto to a referendum, and as a sitting head of state, you don't have much time to campaign. And so he's trying to do it once again so that he can show people that, I really won against this guy. And so let this act as a vote of no confidence on this administration. Because I'm telling you today, all those issues that have been raised by the Raila Odinga team, if they are presented to the referendum and then William Ruto supports it, believe me not, Raila Odinga will go against them again. Because as I told you earlier, he just thrives in a campaign mood.
He's always in campaign mood. Raila Odinga is always in campaign mood. Those are sentiments of Rasa Makori. Maybe before we move on to the next question, what do we believe is the next step for Azimio? Because we've seen those who are close to Raila Odinga during the campaigns, just immediately the election, Atuoli Francis, actually the first one to shift the from Azimio joining the Kenya Kwanza, and he have been noted many times saying that we were aware that we were not able to defeat William Ruto, saying that Ruto is a professor in politics, as sometime Siaya Governor James Orenga pointed out. Now, my question to my analysts: what do you think is happening in Azimio after the elections? First, we've seen the Kenya Kwanza administration by buying politicians from Azimio. First, they started by removing some political parties from Azimio. Some moved from Azimio to join Kenya Kwanza. Some politicians, especially those who are independent, were bought to join the Kenya Kwanza to get the majority. And even recently, we've seen ODM as a party punishing some of their members for having a good relationship with the president. And now that today the president is in a 4-day tour in Nyanza region, especially the rural parts. What do you see the future of ODM? Is it the end? Is William Ruto using the 16th law of power to completely destroy ODM and Raila Odinga as Azimio? What are your opinions? We start with Arasa Makori.
Yeah, thank you once again. I'm trying to look at this not just for the ODM party, but for Azimio as a whole. Azimio, unlike the William Ruto team of Kenya Kwanza, prepared their team for a win. That is to say that the Azimio team had no post-election plan in regards to a loss. You could see how Raila did at, Bomas or KICC, even named a cabinet. Joe was the CS for lands, and when there's this guy from Kakamega who was to be the CS for finance. They totally had no plan on how to proceed after they lost. That is why immediately after they lost, some of the MPs decamped to the other side. For Ruto, he had a plan. In fact, there's a narrative that it is Ruto who proposed for the introduction of the office of the official opposition leader, so that once he loses, he can come up with a strong opposition to counter the government and maintain his popularity. And again, I'm trying to look at it like he's trying to play that gentleman role by saying that let the office come up anyway so that Raila can occupy it. But now that it was his brainchild, he can use it again to crush Raila totally. Azimio la Umoja lacks some 3-4 things that will put it together as a team to the next general election. Number one, besides having Raila Odinga as the highest authority in the team, they are not so sure who will contest for presidency or who will be the flag bearer in the next election. Because when you've lost, you don't have any business other than checking the government and planning for the next election. So people, you see, 1 year has just gone down. We left with 3 years, we start the campaign again. But for Azimio, they should be campaigning as early as now. As of now, Azimio do not have a clear message and vision that they will give to the people so that their supporters can at least have some hope. Number two, what is the target of audience of Azimio? The target audience of Azimio as of now. Azimio says its main focus now is the National Dialogue Committee, which they think the outcome will have a solution to the Kenyan problems. But some people are trying to look at it as a way of sneaking into the government. But in regards to their future in politics, they don't have a target audience. And then they don't have anything that they bring to the people. Now, yeah, we lost. They want to do this and this so that in future, our mistakes will not happen again, or our problems, because for them, the elections were stolen. Our problems that were systematically inflicted on us do not happen again. Lastly, on the factors, Azimio do not have a ground game. You see, if I was the advisor for Azimio, I would have told them to name Kalonzo Musyoka as early as now as the flag bearer for the 2027 elections, and then drop Martha Karua. Because when you realize that a certain player in a team is not effective, the only justice you can do to that player, instead of making him or her sit on the bench, is to drop the player so that he or she can go to play in a league that fits them.
That's Arasa Makori. What about you, Alfred?
First of all, you see the reasons to why coalition is the purpose of any coalition is to form a government. For Azimio, they formed the coalition with the vision of you see, nobody wants to be associated with the losing side. You can see after when the election results were announced, if the claim by Azimio is something to home by, they believe that they end the majority of members of parliament. They had the majority of members of parliament. That is, we actually end because there were several members of parliament that had been elected with a party that belonged to a certain party known as UDM from northern part of Kenya. But after the election results were announced, the MPs decided to go to the center of Kenya Kwanza. What is happening now with the Jubilee Party being a coalition member of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition? You have seen two factions of Jubilee Party. One led by Kanini Kenga and Sambina Chenge. The other one led by Jeremiah Kioni. We have seen a court make a ruling and a determination that the national, the NDC that was owned by the former president at Ngong Race Course was illegal, was not done in accordance with the tenets of the political parties, because the political parties believe the Sabina Chenge and Kanini Kenga are the leaders of Jubilee. They don't recognize Jeremiah Kion and the rest. Now, you have also seen, I believe the plan of William Ruto is to cut Raila down to size, because you can see majority of the members of parliament from Luo, that is the likes of Elisha Diambo and Jalango, the one for Sumba, there is another one called Kara Mondi. Therefore, another one known as Mark Nyamita from Migori County. Yeah. They have decided to work with the president. So, and actually, I think it is this week that the president will be touring the Nyanza region. So the plan of William Ruto is to use these legislators so that he can make inroads in the part of Luo Nyanza that is considered to be the stronghold of Raila Odinga. And as my colleague Arasa said, the plan for Azimio, the Azimio should announce the one who will be running the flag bearer for 2027 presidential election. There are those who believe that Raila still has a bullet remaining to run for the seat of presidency. And Raila has been doing interviews, and most of the many people have questioned whether he will run in 2027 or not, but he has said that he has not decided. But trust me, in 2027, we might see Raila Odinga again running for the seat of the presidency. And trust me, if Raila decides to run for the seat, then we might have Kalonzo Musyoka decides to go alone, like he did in 2007. So, as my colleague Arasa said, if a player is not performing, I'm a fan of Arsenal, and currently there is a certain player that I don't like, from Chelsea, known as Safa. for instance, in this Karua, in this scenario, Mother Karua, there is nothing that Mother Karua has been doing in Azimio, other than maybe changing the dress code from one kitenge to another. So the best way for Raila Odinga would be to be in Mother Karua and maybe come up with someone else. And also, you have also seen that Martha Karua and Jeremiah Kioni, they have come up with a certain coalition known as Kamwene. So basically, what Kamwene means, it means for my own. Nobody knows what the purpose of this coalition, what the purpose of this faction that they have joined will be. Yeah, those are my views.
Yeah, those are sentiments, strong points from Alfred Mutua saying that what Raila Amolo Odinga needs to do.
Alfred Musioka, not Mutua.
Sometimes like that. You can be Alfred Mutua someday.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Alfred Musioka is telling us what Azimio needs to do is to drop their non-performing key player, Martha Karua, and perhaps replace her with Kalonzo Musyoka, who has seemed to be very strong and strategic even at this point. Rasa is suggesting that Azimio should even be starting campaigning as early as now, so as to be able to prepare themselves for 2027. Recently, we've seen the president even have started campaigning for 2027 when they had the National Delegate Committee meeting at Bomas with the UDA members, preparing for the UDA party election in December. Seems they've started preparing themselves for 2027. And the president has warned even as new that if they don't take care, even they will lose or they will lack a chief agent come 2027. We might find it maybe to be true if Azimio as a coalition does not take time to prepare itself, plan its housing order, know who's the next kingpin, and maybe who would be their preferred presidential candidate come in 2027. Now, this gives me another question to my analyst and to you, viewers. Whom do you think or whom do you suppose is going to be the next ODM or Azimio king maker or kingpin, as we can term? Whom do you think is going to take from Raila Odinga maybe to be the kingmaker for Azimio or opposition at large?
Yes, if I can come in, Emmanuel, just to add to what my brother said, and again in regards to your question, President Ruto wants Raila Odinga to run against him for one simple reason. Raila is proving that he can easily be defeated. So any political player would like to run against Raila Odinga. That despite all the hype, despite all the popularity, despite all the following that he has, it is easy to defeat Raila Odinga. In this way, that even if Raila won and there was a contentious issue with that election, you only need the IBC and the Supreme Court for you to retain your position as president. So Raila being in the ballot in 2027 is a good factor for President Ruto to retain his position as president. I've seen Raila Odinga make several appearances to the press while addressing some coalition issues from the Kalonzo Musyoka command center. I'm not so sure because Raila is like a cat. He has 9 lives. Every time he could tell you that this is my last bullet, and you end up realizing that it's the powder that came out, the shell is in the chamber. He has not unleashed his last bullet. But if all goes well and he decides to hang the boots, I think he could support Kalonzo Musyoka to be the next Azimio flag bearer. And we're not so sure whether it will still be Azimio or it should just be one Kenya. But if in any case he picks Kalonzo Musyoka, that would be the best thing. The only thing remaining in that arrangement is to convince the people of Luo Nyanza and the people of Western Kenya and those from the coast who have been religiously supporting Raila Odinga that now it's my time to retire, but the best man to propel my agenda forward is Kalonzo Musyoka. Just that. And again, another hurdle in that formula is who will deputize Kalonzo Musyoka. Because as I told you from the onset, one of the great political theories that are proved to work in Kenya is that you need at least two big
Communities.
tribes or communities and a small community for you to go to State House. So the Kamba community and the Luo community are two big communities that are supporting the Azimio side. So by Kalonzo Musyoka becoming the flag bearer, most obviously Raila Odinga will not be the running mate. So who will be the running mate? No, it will be a very hard task for them to pick a running mate. One of the problems that Azimio is facing is the struggle for power. Everybody's trying to be seen as them calling the shots in Azimio. Like, what am I in this Azimio in the hierarchy? So again, at that point, you will find people like Oparanya, Joho, and the rest trying to threaten to walk out, and that will play as a good factor for William Ruto because in politics, it's either you are white or black. You don't play a neutral ground. You don't become gray. You're just hot or cold, not warm. So if somebody walks out of Azimio, he'll most definitely join Kenya Kwanza. And so the hardest task for them is now to pick the running mate.
So that's according to Arasa Makori. Any remarks, Alfred Musyoka?
You asked a question on who is like step over as the one to lead as new should Raila and sent to step aside. And the question here is obvious. You see, Kalonzo Musyoka is a seasoned politician who has been in this field of politics since 1985. He actually happened to come from the same location with Kalonzo Musyoka. And Kalonzo has served in various ministries. You remember, around 1988, he was the elected Speaker of the National Assembly. He has served in the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of the Environment, Minister of Education. He has been the Vice President for Kimbaki. And for me, this formation, right, in 2022, in 2027 election, I think the role that Raila can play is like what he did in 2002. Remember, in 2002, Raila decided not to run for the seat of president, and he decided to convince these people to vote for Moi Kibaki, and actually won. But again, in Africa, you will call that in Africa, one of the hardest things in Africa is to remove a sitting president from office. I remember it is only the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, that only went for only one term. That went for one term and was not re-elected in the next term. So this one will be it will not be a walk in the park for Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition, since the William Ruto that they were running against in 2022 appeared to be like an opposition in government, because he was running against the former vice president, the former prime minister, and the current head of state. So now William Ruto is the president of the Republic of Kenya. I don't believe that even despite the lineup that they will come up with, maybe they can come up with a lineup of Kalonzo being the flag bearer. Then we have Oparanya Oparanya becoming the deputy president, or rather the running mate of Kalonzo Musyoka. But again, there is a rule in politics that says that loyalty is paid in installments, but betrayal is punished instantly. You can see that in the cabinet reshuffling that has happened, William Ruto decided to want Musalia Mudavadi with more roles now that Mudavadi is running for will be the one ending the foreign affairs ministry as well as being the chief cabinet secretary. You can see there is also someone like Musalia Mudavadi from the region and other CSEs, other cabinet secretaries. So I believe Western Kenya are quite convinced that they are in government, and I don't believe someone like maybe Oparanya can be able to convince the entire of Western Kenya vote for Kalonzo Musyoka as the next president. You see, Ruto are wanting these positions to the people from Western Kenya is a proof that the people from the region are quite convinced that they are in government. They are in government, and I think a majority of them come 2027 will vote in favor of President William Ruto rather than Azimio la Umoja.
Alfred is telling us that loyalty is awarded in installments, while the disobedience is being punished immediately. So this will be bringing us almost to the end of our conversation. But before then, there are a few questions maybe we'll be asking ourselves before we leave the room. Raila Amolo Odinga, seasoned politician, is a very slippery politician to handle without the gloves. We've seen him betray those whom at a particular point have supported him. Just maybe in 2002, he had to betray Simeon Yechai, whom they had an agreement that he was going to support him for the case of Nyanza having one presidential candidate. Now Yechai was from Gusii region, while Raila from the Luo, both coming from Nyanza. So maybe they had an agreement, and Raila promised Yechai that I'm going to support your presidential bid, only for Raila Amolo Odinga to support Mwai Kibaki, something that the Gusii people termed to be betrayal from Raila Odinga. Something maybe has brought the disunity between the Nyanza people up to today. In 2007, we're seeing Raila Odinga working close with William Ruto, now the current president. Even after the post-election violence, we'll see Ruto being taken to the Hague. And even coming back, Raila Odinga has had to stop supporting him. Maybe something has brought the differences we're seeing up to today. So in 2013, when you had the code? I think, when did we have code? And then Raila Odinga again is showing the key principles that Musalia and Wetangula. 2017, we see Raila Amolo Odinga proclaiming himself to be the president, leaving Miguna to suffer alone at the hands of being deported to Canada. Now, do we expect another Raila Amolo Odinga's betrayal in just before 2027?
Personally, I think Raila Odinga fits the definition of a politician, and in politics, you do whatever it takes for you to maintain your popularity and to gain and maintain power if you have to. So Raila Odinga has had that history, as you said, and if an offer is made to him today, believe me not, he can betray some of his friends, because what Raila Odinga should be working on right now is on how to retire while still having that popularity, because the H factor is now racing against him. If today Raila Odinga is invited for a handshake with William Ruto, I have all the reasons to believe that he can go. The reason as to why I'm saying that, I've seen Raila Odinga pick a fight with Rigathi Gachagua. Despite the fact that Raila was not running against Rigathi Gachagua, all of a sudden, Rigathi Gachagua is now the enemy of Raila Odinga. And that's how it started in 20,
17.
2017 and 2018. That's how Raila identified an enemy within the state and then made up new friends. So you never know, because I also have some other reasons to believe that despite whatever that is happening at the Bomas of Kenya, there could be some other talks that we're not seeing, secret talks maybe between Raila and Ruto, because at some point we also told that the two met in Mombasa for talks, only for the details of the talks to leak out to the media later. So maybe these two are meeting and you never know what happens. But I was watching some interview with a certain media house a day ago, and I saw Raila Odinga castigating the deputy president, saying that they should not even head a chicken pen. So you can know who is the enemy of Raila Odinga in government right now, because he has not come out to say that to Ruto. And despite him saying that he doesn't recognize the presidency of William Ruto, he's trying to go somehow soft on William Ruto than Rigathi Gachagua. So my point is that Raila Odinga can betray his allies, but the question is Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo Musyoka can betray you before you betray him, because in 2007 he did not run together with Raila Odinga, and in fact, if he had run with Raila Odinga, it could be so for that election to go the other way, even though people believed it not go the way it went. So Kalonzo Musyoka ran independently, and when time came for him, when time came when he was matched by Odinga to start up that election had made recognized as a legitimate election, Kalonzo Musyoka was among the first three people who accepted the results, and he was rewarded with the position of vice president. So if today William Ruto invites Kalonzo Musyoka, and if in any case Kalonzo Musyoka learns that Raila Odinga is planning to go and betray me in the near future, Kalonzo Musyoka will take that offer before Raila Odinga does. So it is a game of politics. You never know what will come. But Raila Odinga betraying his allies, that one can be given a high probability.
So Arasa, you're saying, do we expect a handshake or we don't expect a handshake?
Two things we expect from the Bomas talks. Number one is a referendum, like the way we had the BBI build up. If there will be no referendum, then we expect a handshake. It can come in any way. It doesn't have to be the handshake we know, that's like the one of Kenyatta and Odinga. It can come in very many ways that we might not even realize that it's a handshake. But the moment you hear Raila Odinga call William Ruto president, and maybe then you know that a handshake has been done. You don't know how to do and what not to do.
Okay.
Possible.
Alfred Musyoka, do we expect a handshake or we don't expect a handshake?
No, for me, I don't think that we are going to expect to have an handshake anytime soon. So, what we are likely to witness is that after the talks at Bomas of Kenya, we are likely to have a scenario where there will be a referendum, maybe to amend some of the clauses in the constitution. Because you see, Raila Odinga still has an ambition of becoming president in 2022. And this being the second term of President Ruto, maybe one or another could have in the handshake. But what happens now, if for example, let's say that Raila does handshake with William Ruto, so then what happens next? Does it mean that Raila will neglect his opposition role? of keeping the government in check. And you see, this is what Tanzania plans to do in the next election, where they see that these people, in their manifesto, they say that they were coming to uplift the Mama Mboga, the Bondambondas, and the rest. But and also what the cost of living. So I believe these are what will form the part of the Azimio's campaign strategy come 2027. And again, when you talk about Metro, in politics, it seems the only thing that is permanent is Metro. And again, they see that in the field of politics, there are no permanent enemies or friends, only permanent interests. So Raila can descend to Metro you at any given time. You remember after 2017, after the election of 2017, Raila found his allies at the Senate and with the current Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Moses Wetangula, is the minority leader in the Senate. And the promise of Wetangula was it will be messy and messy, and it will have casualties. And indeed that is what happened after the 2022 election, where Raila was the casualty and Wetangula became the Speaker of the National Assembly, making him the third most senior person in this country as far as the constitution is concerned.
We're coming almost to the end. We had these wonderful discussions with our analyzers, others Arasa Makori, together with Alfred Musioka, who have taken us through to the possible reasons to us why Azimio coalition lost the 2022 elections to Kenya Kwanza. Arasa saying that Azimio lost only because Kenya Kwanza won. While Alfred giving reasons two not limited to having chosen a wrong a political running mate, that's Matakalwa, who did not deliver from Mount Kenya region as they saw it. Now, we want to ask the very last question. Do you have anything, Arasa, maybe you think we did not discuss about?
Maybe if you tell me whether you have a question that you're not asked, I'll be glad to answer.
Okay. And then now we will plan, then have another lengthy discussion to the points maybe we did not discuss by it. Say goodbye to our viewers and maybe say something.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you brought up this topic for discussion. It's a good topic because sometimes through engagement is where we get solutions and move to the future. Well, it was a good topic to discuss because elections have got much to do for us as a global South country. Maybe my message to those who are viewing is that we need to hold our leaders accountable. And maybe one quote that we can apply to this scenario of elections, because elections are not a small thing, however much trivial we might make them to look like, is that we should let people know that there is much importance in coming out to vote, because by voting is how you change your lifestyle for 5 years. It depends on how you vote. That's how you change it, whether positive or negative. And there's one political philosopher called Plato who said that one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics, and I want to change that politics with the elections, is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. So let us stand up and voice our energies through election.
AI is insisting on the importance of having elections such every 5 years, general election in our country. And one of the risky things to do is not to turn up and participate in politics, in policy formulating, and even in elections, because one of the penalties is that you'll end up being ruled by your failures. Alfred Musioka, what do you tell our viewers?
It was my pleasure joining you in this conversation as we dissect some of the political and policy issues that are happening in our country. It was also my pleasure to join my friend Rasa Makori in this political discussion. What I would like to tell Kenyans is that there is a certain philosophy who says that the worst illiterate is actually political illiterate because the cost of living, uh, the high cost of living, the high cost of products and services, the poor services that we receive from the government are always a result of not participating in an election. And one of the roles of the politician, specifically the members of parliament, one of them is oversight, representation, and legislation. So the members of parliament have the role of representing their electorates at the National Assembly. So next time I wish to urge Kenyans that whenever they have an election, they make sure that they participate in that election and vote for somebody with a good track record of development and making decisions that are not uh, making independent decisions that will favor the electorate, not to vote for somebody who will sell the electorate to the highest bidder. So those are my remarks, and it's my pleasure that I will continue these discussions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure, be having more of these discussions. Now we've come to the very end of this wonderful discussion, whereby we're discussing what are the possible reasons that made Raila Odinga to lose the 2022 elections, together with Azimio, their failures, what to expect them at the moment, and maybe perhaps what's the future for Azimio. Thank you for getting time and tuning in Kenya News Alert TV together with Channel 7 TV East Africa, whereby we bring you these unbiased political discussions that will help perhaps our leaders to make informed decisions on matters dealing with leadership and governance for our country, Kenya, as it's known. Alfred is telling us that the most and the worst illiterate of all the times is someone who is political illiterate. That's where I put the full stop for today. I was your moderator, Emmanuel Bosire.